What's poppin', guys? It's your boy JayThat'sMe. Let's dive into NXT for April the 18th, 2023. This was a solid show for the most part. First match of the night was the triple threat match for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Gallus, the Dyad, and the Creed Brothers. So, before the match even started, it was a massive brawl. It lasted for about 30 seconds, and then the match took place. It was a bunch of chaos. In the end, Gallus retained via a double team move on Brutus. So I'm fine with that, but you all know I don't like multi-person matches at all. It's way too overdone. But nonetheless, the match itself was solid. So there was a confrontation between Dijak and Apollo Crews. Dijak taunted and bullied a camera guy who was talking to Dijak about the draft, and Apollo Crews said that he's not going to sit there and take that. So he challenged Dijak to a match later on in the show. So that's good that NXT is going to be mentioned in the draft. And I hope that they end up doing the draft right. So they did mention the draft in this. The camera guy mentioned, Raw or SmackDown. And Dijak said that he's going to hand out hard justice either way. Next, moving on. So, Nathan Frazer finally has a character. He's got his own little talk show called Hard-Hitting Home Truths with Nathan Frazer. He reflects on everything that's happened to him for the past few weeks, and he says that you can chase your dreams, or something to that effect. It doesn't matter. I'm just glad he has a character. Next, we get a little video package telling us about Noam Dar. Noam Dar versus Miles Bourne. Noam Dar defeats Miles Bourne. I'm fine with this. He's still carrying around the Heritage Cup. So, we see Josh Briggs in County Damage's office. So, Briggs approaches her and asks for her help to talk to Jensen. So, Kiana James, she declines the offer. Briggs begins to beg her. He says that they came up together and asked her to talk to Jensen. Kiana tells him to talk to Jensen himself. So Jensen, he appears. He's in a white button-down and jeans and glasses. So Jensen tells Briggs to go, but Briggs says they need to hash it out because they're family. Jensen tells him they aren't family, and Briggs tells him the man he doesn't even know the man he's looking at. Jensen tells him he's looking at a man who makes his own choices and decisions, and tells him to leave at once. So, I like this. This is okay for the most part. Although, this probably won't last long. Moving on. So, Odyssey Jones was supposed to have a match, but he doesn't. Bron Breakker attacks him from behind and hits him with a vicious spear. So, Bron begins to mock Odyssey Jones, ask him if that hurt. And that's what happens when you get in his way. He said he had to come out last week to put an end to stop Chase U's pathetic award ceremony. He calls them all clowns. He says Odyssey Jones, Carmelo Hayes, and Andre Chase have all felt his wrath. So then Duke Hudson, he appears in the crowd, tells Bron to keep Chase U's name out of his mouth. He says Breakker made a huge mistake by interrupting his award ceremony and tearing the Chase U flag. He asks Bron if he's sad because he lost the NXT Championship, then says no one puts Chase U down and gets away with it. Duke then challenges Bron to a match next week at Spring Breakin, and Breakker says the last time he saw him, Duke Hudson took off running with his trophy. He tells Duke Hudson to take 7 days, but Duke Hudson cuts him off and says he wasn't done talking. He says that Bron Breakker won't be facing him, but Andre Chase instead. Breakker turns to the camera and tells Chase, Andre Chase to enjoy the last few seconds of breathing before he spears his ass in half next week. Damn. I'm loving me some heel Breakker. Heel Bron Breakker kicks major ass. Kicks major ass. So, Mackenzie Mitchell, she's backstage with Pretty Deadly. So, they air out their grievances and issues with Tony D and Stacks that have been escalating over the past couple of weeks. So, then Pretty Deadly, they express their frustrations, and then they challenge D'Angelo and Stacks to a match next week at Spring Breakin, which is going to be fun. Next, that leads us to Roxanne Perez versus Zoey Stark. Roxanne Perez wins via Pop Rocks. She cut a promo earlier on in the show. Nothing really important, since she's coming back to get her title, and that she's going to shut Zoey Stark's mouth up. So post-match, Indi Hartwell, she hits the ring. She congratulates Roxanne Perez on her win. Then she says she wanted to come out tonight to tell Perez that she wouldn't be NXT champion if it wasn't for her. Indi says she wants to be a fighting champion, then offers her a match for the NXT Women's Championship next week. So Roxanne Perez says Indi is her friend in and out the ring, but it's every woman for herself when it comes to her title. Well, my bad, when it comes to the title. So both Roxanne Perez and Indi Hartwell, they accept and they shake hands. But before they can, Tiffany Stratton, she interrupts. So Stratton asks if she just witnessed Indi give someone else another shot and calls Roxanne Perez a beatable talent. Perez begins to remind Tiffany Stratton that she beat her in the 2022 Breakout Tournament last year. And Tiffany Stratton says that's so 2022. So Indi Hartwell then cuts off Tiffany Stratton and says she doesn't care who it is she faces. She'll prove to herself at Spring Breakin when she beats both of them. So therefore, it's going to be a triple threat match. And again, I don't like multi-person matches, but this match makes sense. I'm hoping that they have Roxanne Perez go over, and then you can have Tiffany Stratton and Roxanne Perez begin their feud beginning at NXT Battleground in May. Because you have about a month and a half. So you have enough time to tell a story. Moving on. Cora Jade versus Gigi Dolin. So, Cora Jade wins via the DDT. Towards the end of the match, Jessie Jane comes out and gets involved. And there's this one point in the match where her and Gigi are brawling. And so Gigi throws JC over the announce desk, and Booker T absolutely loses his shit. And it was hilarious. Vic Joseph, he asked him, "Are you okay?" He says, "Hell nah, man. Hell no." It was golden. I loved it. I forgot to mention that Gigi Dolin and Cora Jade had a little argument backstage when Cora Jade was getting interviewed. Gigi Dolin interrupted her, and Cora Jade called herself the savior of the women's division. Post-match, Lyra Valkyrie, she comes out, and she tells Cora Jade that her time for talking, the time for talking is over, and then she challenges her to a match next week at Spring Breakin. So that's cool. I like that. That should be decent. So Fallon Henley and Josh Briggs, they're in Fallon Henley's bar, and they're talking about Brooks Jensen. So Brooks and Jensen, they walk in. So Briggs is glad that Jensen came to his senses. Jensen tells Briggs that he meant every word of what he said earlier, and then challenges him and Fallon Henley to a mixed tag next week, and they both accept. So Josh Briggs is like, "Well, if this is the only way I can knock some sense into you by giving you an ass whooping, then so be it." So this is interesting, to say the very least. Again, this is something that's probably going to last short term. To me, Brooks and Jensen weren't over at all. They just weren't. I think that there's more money in Kiana James and Fallon Henley versus Briggs and Jensen. That's just me being honest, like 1,000%. Because Jensen and Briggs just aren't good. They just don't have it. They just don't. And I mean, I'm not being mean. I'm not being an asshole. I'm just being real. They don't have it. They just don't. Dijak versus Apollo Crews. Dijak wins via the Feast Your Eyes. This was a pretty decent match. So, post-match, Dominic Dijakovic looks to beat down Apollo Crews some more, but Ilya Dragunov, he comes down, he makes a save. He does a stiff headbutt. I think their match is next week as well, I think. And then the main event, Charlie Dempsey versus Wesley for the NXT North American Championship. So before the match started, Charlie Dempsey was able to beat down Wesley for a good portion of the match. In the end, Wesley wins via the cardiac kid. The cardiac kick for the 1-2-3. Post-match, both Charlie Dempsey and Drew Gulak, they beat down Wesley. They gave him a good little ass whipping, which is always a good thing. So, Spring Breakin looks to be good next week. It looks to be solid. And then the closing segment, the Grayson Waller effect. So, Grayson Waller, he introduces both Carmelo and Trick Williams. So, Grayson Waller says he knows that Carmelo wishes that Bron Breakker was the one sitting here. And Carmelo says, it's fine. He says he has to give Waller credit because he always manages to end up in the main event spot. Then he says he's more decorated than a Christmas tree. Waller says the difference between himself and Carmelo is that he's become the biggest star in 18 months without a title. So then Grayson Waller reads out the first question, and he asks Carmelo, what does I am him mean? So Trick Williams says that Grayson Waller is a hater. Then then says Carmelo has proved he's him. He runs down his accolades. Waller says he thinks that Hayes means that when he says he's him, he's talking about he's them, referring to the NXT universe. And says that he'd be nothing without Trick Williams, which is partially true because, Trick Williams has really been by Melo's side for the longest, for well over a year. Like, it's a fantastic duo, Like, those two guys gel really well together. So Carmelo begins to calm down Trick Williams. Then says Grayson Waller has stolen every opportunity he's had. He says there's greatness, and then there's Waller, and then there's himself. Carmelo says Waller may not be the guy and may not be cut out for being a champion. But then he calls for banners to be dropped on the screen. Nothing appears. Carmelo says that's because Waller has no accomplishments to celebrate. Waller and Hayes, they begin to exchange some more words with one another. And then Waller says he'll go viral next week after he wins the NXT Championship. And then Carmelo holds up the NXT title, and Waller holds up his boot. And the two have some more words. And they stare each other down, and that was the end of the show. So, overall, NXT was decent this week. I actually enjoyed it for the most part. Really good stuff here. Spring Breakin looks to be lit. The card looks to be stacked. Well-deserved. It's definitely going to be must-see. It's basically like they gave us a premium live event on television without even giving us one. That's what I see it as. And I think that it's going to be a really good show next week for sure. And this was a great quote-unquote go-home show. I'm excited for most of the stuff next week. Bron Breakker versus Andre Chase. Grayson Waller versus Carmelo, Briggs and Kiana James and Denson versus Fallon Henley and Briggs. So, there's stuff to look forward to on next week's show. What did you guys think? Let me know. Please hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe for more videos. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.